And we're live. Hello, everyone. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward about 15 minutes and we will begin with the show. We're in the pre-show right now. You can see there's all kinds of things going on. We are going through. I need to check and make sure cameras are good. They look good. Oh, let's see if this is good. Yes, it is. How about this one? How about those? Everybody's in good shape. So now it's a matter of just waiting, isn't it? I need to start recording. We'll have the emails and the Twitters and the Facebooks and the Google Pluses will go out shortly. Hello, chat room. See, some of you are there. Let's probably put the link in there so that we have that. Some of you are already in Socrative. You're already on it. On and on and on and on it. The study group today is going to be a good one. I've tried to come up with some better, not better questions, but a tad more difficult, at least another couple steps in the questions. So I'm sure all of you know calculus. So we'll be doing just a little bit of, no, we won't be doing calculus. We'll be fine. There's no calculus. There's a little calculus. There's no calculus on this study group at all. Thankfully for me. Well, I should know calculus well since I took the class twice. Certainly I'd have it down by now. How much harder can it get? A lot. Okay. Let's get this going. Let's get a few things going. How do you stop the hearing it twice? That is a good question. Don't play it twice. I'm guessing. Does it sound funny? Let's see what it sounds like. That would be a good thing to do with our time, wouldn't it? Little quality assurance. Not a bad idea. Let's play this video and see what it sounds like. Is it doubled? Does it sound funny? Let's see what it sounds like. No, it sounds good. I like it. It's delightful. Okay. Okay, backups are off. Might as well start some recordings. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's record that. Let's record that. That is recording the correct outputs. Fixed my problem from last time. All right, those are going. Might as well record locally up here as well. We have 3 recordings going. Really 2 recordings and a secondary video that I do just because I can. There's 2 videos when I'm doing this, since we have time before we start. We're about 10 minutes, 11 minutes before we start. So the way I do this, there's not just what you're seeing, which is this little screen down here, but there's a preview that I see. That's what, if I hit a button, that's what you end up seeing. So I get to see the preview of what's going on. So I record both the live program and the preview at the same time. So that's what that's about. I do that in case I need to edit afterwards. If I do something weird in the program view, I can edit in the preview. I could edit in a lot of different things. It would just be nice to keep the continuity going all the time. Let me tell you how much I like you people. I did not reschedule this even after I find out that that Apple has set up their presentation for today. I want to hear all about it. They're not going to have the answer I want, by the way, in that presentation, because I'm looking for Mac Pro update. That's not going to happen today. But maybe it'll be one of those where they throw it out with the trash, maybe tomorrow, next day, kind of thing. Let's put the link up there again. How are we doing? Folks are getting there. That looks fine there. Might as well leave the analytics up so I can see. Let's try starting a presentation, shall we? And that works too. Okay. All right, so I'm no longer making noises. You opened it twice. That's good. It would be horrible if it was saying the same thing over and over. It would be horrible if it was doing the same thing over and over. The study group today is going to be about an hour, and then we will, I guess I'll open phone lines up and get that going. Oh, and there's a Periscope going of the Apple event. I'm seeing things scroll by in my Twitter. I'll have to watch the replay. It'll give me something to do this afternoon because I really didn't have anything planned. There's nothing going on. Live video will begin in about an hour. We'll be taking phone calls. Let's see, did that get updated? Yes, it did. I think it did. We'll save it twice because it was so nice. All right, and back to the chat room. Hello, chat room. I have a bunch of things to go through today. This is crooked. Can't see things on my side. So we've got that piece. How do the preview screens look? They look pretty good. All right. That all works for me. All right. How's the chat room? How's everybody doing? Everyone settling in? Good group of people in there. It's we've already done a lot of RAID in the chat room today. We're talking all about RAID arrays, RAID 0, RAID 1. What did I put there? What is on the what's on my Twitter? Nope, don't need that. Don't need that. I try to put all the links on the live page. There's a lot going on there. There's the Stephen Colbert. I haven't read my Twitter today. I haven't even gone through the feed. I have no idea what's on here. It's all about getting things ready for the live stream. Even though it's at noon, you would think that'd be plenty of time to prepare and get ready for a live event. And doesn't work that way. I'll be covering half of this will be 801 material, half of this will be 802 material. So it'll be 50-50. We do a little bit of everything. There is there's nothing more to do. I think we're ready to go. We're recording. We're also recording on the YouTube. So that part's good too. I figured out why my system was not recording last week. It was because I was not feeding it a video signal. So it was smart enough not to record. There you go. You put a video signal in it. Look at that. It's Cylons, which is what I want. It's a good thing. All right. We've got 5.5 minutes before we start. Everybody collect your things. We're getting there. Okay. What else do we need? Why do I have memory sitting here? Oh, I know I have memory sitting there. There's a couple of them. I need to put those back. It's kind of tough coming back off the holiday here in the U.S. It was Labor Day on Monday. So yesterday felt like Monday, but was really Tuesday. I guess by now, since it's Wednesday, you're kind of past the lag. You're past the piece that is creating a problem for you. Or we should be anyway. So if you want to answer questions today, you would go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer Room. ProfessorMesser. If you are in a Socrative room and nothing is going on and it tells you that the teacher has not started anything, then you're in the wrong room. Because I have absolutely started something. Looks like that. People already answering. So go to Socrative.com. Let's see, emails will have already gone out. Some of you are joining us because you just found out the tweet went out, the Google+, the Facebook. Oh, SMTP on an old server. Well, that would do it all day, every day. Mail's got to go to the right place. Let's put this back. Where'd I have it? Like that. Reset this. How much experience needed to be a professional? Well, technically, you don't need any experience. You just need someone to pay you. Then you're a professional. That's kind of how it works. Uh-oh. That can't be good. All right. Folks are looking good there. Let's see what else we have for here. Nope, don't need that. How about this? Yes, that's working. Okay, good. You answered it. It's working. You did it. And just stay on that page, and there will be more questions to come later in the program. 2 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. Very close. Obviously, if you're on the replay, you can't use Socrative. I guess that doesn't really help saying that until I'm actually recording this live. So that will be on the replay that people see. This part of it, the pre-show, is here for a few minutes, for a few hours after this is available. And then I edit out everything so that it gives you a 1080p and completely non-pre-showed version of this as the permanent version. Teacher code, Professor Messer, PROFESSOR MESSER. Right there. Okay. 1 minute, and we'll get things going. So I can get through that. We'll do some phone calls in the second hour. And then I'm going to go watch the Apple, or the rest of the Apple stuff. I'll have to watch the last part, and what I'm probably going to end up doing is scrolling through all the live blogging going on and kind of catch up as things are happening, and then I'll probably watch the whole thing later. That's kind of how it works, doesn't it? Oh, and they're field testing new weapons in Destiny. So now that gives me something else I have to do tonight. We should probably get a group together, go tackle the new raids. All right, let's prepare for a thing. We'll put up the title page and we'll start the show. It's going to be awesome. All right, everyone, stand by and we'll make something happen. Not like that, you won't. How about like this? There you go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2015 Professor Messer A+ Study Group. This is our monthly study group where I ask you questions and you give me answers. We'll do that for the first hour. And the second hour, I'll open up phone lines and we'll talk about, well, whatever you'd like to talk about. They're completely open phone lines. They don't have to be about the A+ certification necessarily. They can really be about anything. So we'll talk about those and many other things. So relax, grab something that you'd like to have to drink, and then we'll step through all of these pieces. This is something I do every month. I want to thank all of you for supporting me throughout the month. You're watching the free videos. Every single one of my training videos is available to watch for absolutely free. And of course, that's all of that goes back to what we're doing here. I just keep creating more videos and you keep watching them. So I'm going to keep making them. We're going to open up those phone lines later. You may want to make a note. If you're watching this live on YouTube, you may want to watch it live instead on my website, professormesser.com/live, so that you can participate in the chat. There's no chat, obviously, available here on the YouTube side, and I'm watching everybody going back and forth and what they're doing there. I'll have the phone lines open in the second hour. The phone line number is also on that live page. It's 855-785-RJ45. If you want to keep track of what we do throughout the month, you can find me on professormesser.com/YouTube, professormesser.com/Twitter. And of course, I want to remind you that if you want to save 10% on your test vouchers, you can, of course, find a voucher code at professormesser.com/vouchers, which makes it easy to remember, doesn't it? If you are watching this for some continuing education unit credits, I do provide those as well. It's good for 1 credit, and for your A+, I think in a 3-year period, you can get how many total? 4 CEUs from doing this. So you can't get all of the CEUs that you need to renew your certification. But if you're going this route and you're watching my study groups, you can watch 4 of those and at least get 4 CEUs. More than that, you can't have any of those there. There's only so many you can accumulate of a certain type in that particular time frame, that 3-year period while you're renewing it. But if you do have your certification, I'll tell you later on in the presentation what you need to do. There'll be a secret code I give you, and that secret code will be used to send back to me so that I can send you your digital certificate. This is something that's also supported by you throughout the month. All of you are, of course, watching these videos live and online, but of course, I make these videos available offline as well. You can purchase an offline version. And of course, all of the proceeds of that go to keeping everything running here at Professor Messer. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/downloadable-A+. It doesn't just have videos though. I have MP3 audio on this. You can also buy the audio separately as well. It's the same link that's here. If you don't want to spend money and have that for video, it's only half the cost if all you'd like is audio on there. All my slides are available in PDF format. Everything is closed caption. I have transcripts online if you'd rather read rather than watch my videos. Sometimes transcripts are odd to read because you're coming directly from what someone's saying, but at least all of that is online. I have a human being sit down and type all of these things out. So it's something that is not an automated system. These are real transcripts written by real people. So they're very, very accurate, which is very important to me as well. Well, today I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to provide me with some answers. And the way we do that is through an online service called Socrative. This is an absolutely free service. You can download the app for all of your mobile devices, Android, iOS, Windows Phone. They even have an app you can run in a Chrome browser if you wanted to, or just pop open a new browser window and visit Socrative.com. You would click the student login button and you want to log into the room Professor Messer. Make sure you spell it right, or you're not going to be able to see anything going on in the room. And I'll tell you, I haven't started anything yet, and that's because you walked into the wrong room. You need to go into the right room. PROFESSORMESSER. Now, obviously, if you're watching this on a replay, you're not going to be able to do this live. You have to be here and see it live to be able to answer the questions on Socrative. So if you want to see when we're doing this live, you can go to professormesser.com/calendar anytime and see when we're doing these live events. And you can see a number of people have already answered this. We have folks that have said they've been studying this for less than 3 months. 43% of you have said that. 3 to 6 months have been 20%. And then some other folks are 6 to 9, more than 9 months. And 11% of us here already have our A+ certification. You're probably watching this for continuing education units. And you're more than welcome to send me that note afterwards, and I will send you the digital certification that you need. Obviously, you will need to have your certification for me to send you a CEU. You can't accumulate CEUs until you're actually certified. So it doesn't help you until you get that certification. So those 11% of you can send me the request for CEU. I guess anyone could send me a request, but you can only use them if you actually have the study group. So let's see what types of things we can can really figure out here. There's 2 exams, of course, you have to take for your A+ to become certified. You have to take your 801 exam and you have to take your 802 exam. So this is one of those things that is pretty important whenever you're trying to figure it out. The 801 exam is one that includes hardware, networking, laptops, printers, and operational procedures, and you need to have a passing score of 675 on a scale of 900 to pass that exam. Then you have to at least pass the other exam. So these are a pair. You have to take the 801 and the 802, and when you take both of them together, you are then A+ certified. You can't just take one. You get nothing by taking one. You have to make sure you take both of them. The 802 is operating system security, mobile devices, and troubleshooting. Again, 90 questions, and it's a little bit harder. You have to get at least a 700 on that exam to be able to pass out of the scale of 900. So there's quite a bit to go through on both of these exams. These are very comprehensive exams. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to ask you some questions and see how much you know about the A+ exam, and then you're going to answer them for me. We're going to see how well we do. Remember to go to Socrative.com to the room name Professor Messer. If you see a screen saying waiting for teacher, you're in the wrong room. So you need to make sure you back out of there, go to Socrative again, close out your browser, restart, whatever you have to do to get back in there and go to the room Professor Messer. I'll give you the fact, here it is right here. We'll do our first question of the day. Which of these would be the best way to repair the master boot record in Windows 7? And I'm giving you a number of different options to be able to do this. You need to be able to figure out what these are. So your options available are, is it bootrec/fixmbr? Is it bootrec/bootfix? Is it bootrec/mbrfix? Is it bootrec/mbr? Or is it bootrec/repair? One of these will allow you to repair the master boot record in Windows 7. No Googling, folks. If you think you know what it is, go to Socrative.com. And there's the room name again right there on the screen, Professor Messer. I even tried thinking maybe a smaller name would be easier. Maybe I'll come up with something smaller next time so we can get into their pieces. It's one of those that should be easy to figure out. So the room name is Professor Messer, and maybe you folks know what the answer is. There's a lot of different answers here. I gave you really have to know your stuff because it could be any one of these. They all make perfect sense. They all seem to have the right names in it. We know that it's a bootrec command because every single one of these is bootrec, but which one is it? So you have to know for your A+ exam, especially on the 802, all of these different options for working at the recovery console. And this command line recovery console of Windows 7 is different than if you're running other operating systems. In fact, it's the same as some operating systems and different than others. So you not only need to know how to do this in Windows XP, but Windows Vista and Windows 7. And there are differences between those. So it's an important one to keep in mind. Let's see how we did on this one. We have a number of folks that have already answered. We seem to have at least a majority, but we have double digits down the line. The majority, 57% of you have said it's bootrec/fixmbr. But is it? Is it one of those? 15% have said it's bootrec/bootfix, 12% said bootrec/mbrfix, and another 12% bootrec/repair. Only 6% said it was bootrec/mbr. This is something you will run into quite a bit when you are working in an operating system, especially if you're trying to dual boot or add another operating system to the same physical disk. You may overwrite the master boot record. A virus or malware may overwrite the master boot record as well, and you may want to rebuild that master boot record yourself. Well, the way you do this is by using this command in Windows Vista, Windows 7, even Windows 8 and 8.1. I put that on here since a lot of people are using that one as well. This is where you would boot from the installation media and go into the Windows command prompt. It's in the repair section when you're starting up from your installation media. That's why it's so important to have that bootable installation media. And the command you would like to be able to use on this is the bootrec command, and it's specifically bootrec/fixmbr. Now, on your exam, you may be thrown into a command prompt, and the question may be, please repair the master boot record in this Windows 7 or Windows Vista machine, and you have to know exactly what to type in. On the exams, you don't really have the question mark, the slash question mark that you can use. You have to know this information cold. If you were to do a slash question mark, even like I did here with the boot rec, I just typed in the boot rec command, and you can see I got a lot of different options. The fix MBR, fix boot, scan OS, rebuild BCD. It's quite a few things you can do there. So this is one where working with this boot rec can be really useful, but you need to know the command. So slash fix MBR is the one that you need to know to be able to fix the master boot record. Maybe that would be the good way to have that work. So let's look at how we did on that one. Boot rec slash fix MBR would be the correct answer. The 60% of you that said boot rec slash fix MBR, you'd be absolutely correct. All of these others I just made up. So these aren't even commands. Don't even think about memorizing them or understanding what they do because they're not real. We have to know specifically boot rec slash fix MBR to be able to do this. So that's one that's going to be really useful when you start working at the command prompt and doing this recovery console piece for your operating system. We did pretty well with that. 60% is a pretty good number in the chat room. So if you didn't get it right, that's okay. You just learned something. And you'll be able to use this if you're thrown into the command line, either when you're recovering from an actual computer or when you're in your exam itself. Let's do another one, shall we? I've got plenty of questions here. This one is a little bit different. We have to know what a very specific term is. And the question is, which of these would you expect to find on an MSDS? I'm asking you to pick two things in this list that you might expect to find on an MSDS. Now, if you don't know what an MSDS is, maybe you're looking through the answers or the possible answers, maybe something that might help us. So let's see what the different options might be. We've got A, minimum memory requirements, B, ingredients, C, operating system requirements, D is the quick start instructions. It could be first aid information, recommended paper weight, and G is contrast ratio. Now I'm looking for two answers here. Make sure you read through these questions. You will occasionally get on the A+ exam the option to pick more than one particular answer. And you'll notice in the testing software that it will change from a radio button to a checkbox. And that should be your visual cue to realize that, oh, there might actually be more than one response here. Make sure you read through those. Now, answering the chat room, if you think you know, go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer room, and you will be able to answer this as well. We've got a few people that have been answering these so far, and I like how we're piecing through this one. I gave you a lot of different options. I don't know that you would get this many options on your exam. You certainly could, though. I'm asking you a very, very simple question, but there's a lot of different possible answers. I wanted to really give you something to really think about and go through if you're trying to figure out what the different options might be. An MSDS, of course, is in the CompT exam requirements. Those exam objectives are quite comprehensive. I'll talk more about those later. If you don't have the objectives, make sure you download and use those objectives. That's going to be very, very useful to have that there. I think that whenever I start looking through the objectives and realizing just how detailed they are, they make a great checklist. So if you're studying for your exam, you're trying to figure out, what do I need to know to pass this exam? It's all in the exam objectives. So make sure you think about how you might want to use those going forward. It's something I maybe even print out, use as a big checklist. Let's see how we did. Which of these would we expect to find on an MSDS? Wow, we're pretty much all over the place. There were a couple that nobody chose. Nobody chose contrast ratio. Wouldn't it be crazy if that was it? No, it's not it. 0% of you said contrast ratio. You're absolutely correct. It's definitely not contrast ratio. Very few people said recommended paper weight. Very few people said quick start instructions. And we seem to have a tie for 4 places, it seems. We've got minimum memory requirements, ingredients, operating system requirements, and first aid information. And let's see, first aid information at least is 30%, but everybody else is really evenly matched. So which one of these would it be? Would it be for an MSDS? This MSDS is right here. This is a good example of one. This is a material safety data sheet. Whenever you get a piece of electronics or a something that goes into these electronics, anything that has these types of materials associated with it, especially one that has chemicals, you're going to see absolutely this material safety data sheet included along with these. And I know in some places you'll see these referred to as safety data sheets, but of course, material safety data sheet is exactly the same thing. So make sure you look through these because they're going to have in there everything you need to know about this particular piece of equipment or materials that are used for this piece of equipment. So this can be information about the product and the company it came from, the composition or the ingredients of that particular device or piece of material, hazard information, first aid measures, firefighting, anything that's relating to how you handle this particular device or this particular piece of machinery. This is pretty important when you start working with things that have chemicals inside of them. Our computers have chemicals inside of them. There's a very industrial process that is used to build these circuit boards. At one time, there was a lot of lead inside of them. We got rid of all the lead. We're doing so many things to make these safer products because ultimately we have to dispose of them. And of course, when you use things like a laser printer, you've got toner that goes in these laser printer cartridges. And so that toner is a chemical itself. What happens if you spill that? Is it toxic? Is it not toxic? What if somebody gets some in their eye? What's the proper procedure to use? Do we flush it with water? Do we definitely not flush it with water? We wouldn't know that unless you had a material safety data sheet so you can understand what those are. So if you were looking at this list, minimum memory requirements, nothing about how to use this technically is in this material safety data sheet. That's for something completely different for your product. So it's not the minimum memory requirements. It also has nothing to do with the requirements of the operating system. The MSDS is not going to tell you how much hard drive space you need or how much memory you need. This is a safety sheet. So there's nothing you need to know safety-wise about what the minimum requirements are for this. What it does have in it are ingredients, especially in the case of something like a toner cartridge. You need to know what's inside that toner cartridge, and first aid information. If that toner cartridge does spill, if these batteries do break, and whatever's inside of these batteries gets out, what do you do? This will have all of that information on the material safety data sheet. So if you're part of the group, the 22% that said ingredients and the 32%, if we add those up, about 54%, maybe plus or minus, got this one right. First aid information, E, would be the other correct answer. So if you answered B and you answered E, you got both of those absolutely correct. So good job on knowing your materials safety data sheet. All right, now we're doing pretty well. One of the things that people have told me is they wanted harder questions. And I'm hoping that some of these are getting a little bit more difficult to figure out on these, to make you think. If you don't get it wrong, you don't learn anything. So I want to give you fair questions, but I want you to also think about what those answers might be as well. Here's one that's more of a troubleshooting question. So this is more for an 802 exam. I guess there's a little bit of 801 in here as well. And the question is about laptops. Specifically, which of these would be the most likely reason for a laptop battery that won't charge? And of course, I have some options for you to answer this as well. Let's look through what the possible responses might be. Would it be that there is an incorrect device driver? Could it be an incompatible battery type? The battery is 3 years old. An AC adapter input voltage is between 100 volts and 240 volts, or the charging system needs to be upgraded. So if you're plugging in a laptop and the battery is not charging, we want to know why that might be. Now, of course, it could be many different things that might cause a battery not to charge. But we are looking, and you can see in this question, for something very specific. The question says, which of these would be the most likely reason of these particular responses? In fact, on some of these, there might be 2 or 3 of these that may be absolutely valid and technically correct, but only one of them is obviously going to be the most likely reason for a laptop battery not to charge. If you think you know the answer, you can go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer room and figure this piece out as well. What's it going to be for these different battery type problems? There's a laptop battery that won't charge. I got this question because someone came into the chat room this week, last week, sometime in the last month and said, I've got a battery, got a laptop, we plug it in, battery's not charging. Not getting any charging messages on my battery. Why is this? Well, that's a good question. Let's build one out and see how we do with this one. So I can tell in this one, we're really thinking it over. I'm noticing it's a little slower to have people answer this one. There's a lot of Googling going on, I think, behind the scenes and figuring this piece out. Go ahead, don't Google it. Just take a stab at it. Just take a guess. Pretend we're in the exam. This is a question that's been asked of you. Let's see if we can get it right. Let's just click it and see what happens. Maybe that would be the way to do it. Let's see how we did with this one. And this is another one I think that we are kind of thinking about, could it be the right answer or could it not be? Because we're a little bit all over the place. Now, nobody said it's an incorrect device driver, or very few. 1% of us said it's an incorrect device driver. Very good for most of you that said, no, that's not the most likely reason. That would be something in the operating system. We can charge a battery without having an operating system. We also, 7%, single digit, said the charging system needs to be upgraded. Well, we know that this laptop ostensibly has been charged before. We didn't say this was a brand new laptop. Yeah, laptop, you plug the battery in, you plug in some power and it charges. So the process isn't very difficult. Anyone can do this. Everyone does do this on their laptops. We don't usually have to upgrade a charging system just to have it work properly. So we're now down to these three, and we're sort of mixed and matched between these pieces that are here. What 27% have said an incompatible battery type, 22% said the AC adapter input voltage is between 100 volts and 240 volts, and 43% of you, if we had to pick the number one, it's not the majority, but we can see the battery is 3 years old. 43% of you said, that's the most likely reason I think that the battery would be an issue. Let's look at a laptop piece, a laptop power supply, and see exactly what's involved in these power supplies. This is a Dell power supply that I use here in my studio. And you can see it's an AC adapter. What you often find with these power supplies for a laptop and even in computers these days is that they are auto switching, which means that you can use them where there is 120 volt power, or you can use them where there's 240 volt power. Or 220 volt power. This particular power supply gives me 20 extra volts on either side of that. So you'll notice the input shows 100 and 240 volts. So I've got a big range, which means I can plug in here in the United States. I can take the same power supply to the United Kingdom and plug into their power supply system there without any type of voltage converters at all. I may need a different plug so that it will physically fit into the plug that I'm using in the United Kingdom, but I don't need to change anything about the power that's being used. So that's very useful to have that there. And you can see the output. It's outputting 19.5 volts into the laptop at 4.62 amps. Now, this is very useful. If the battery isn't charging, it's something about this process that is not working properly. One of the things, especially on older laptops that have had their battery for a long period of time, you'll notice that it's charging, it's working just fine, and then one day it stops charging. Happens very quickly. We don't really have a gradual cool down anymore. You may see a diminished amount of storage of power in that, but not that much of a difference. And it seems like in a day, suddenly it now doesn't charge any longer. And that's very common with the battery technologies, the lithium ion type charging technologies we have these days. It is one where if you have an older battery, you're going to find that eventually it just doesn't do anything. And it really gives you very little warning when that happens. We also may want to look at the laptop itself. The charging system is inside of the laptop along with the battery. So if we've tried a different battery and a different power supply, then maybe we can point to the laptop, but that's a pretty rare occasion when you compare it, at least relative to batteries going bad or even power supplies like this one going bad. That power converter, power adapter brick that's outside the laptop gets beat around a lot, especially if you're traveling around with a laptop and you get frayed cords, and it goes through a lot of changes. You're pulling it out, you're plugging it in a hotel room, you're packing it back up. So you may go through more power converters and batteries than you would ever need to charge change anything with the charging system inside your laptop. There might also be the case where you just don't get any power at all. One thing to keep in mind here is most of these power systems will take an input of between 100 and 240 volts. So usually having anywhere plugging in and getting that range is just fine as well. So if we look at the responses we had here, you're definitely right. It's not an incorrect device driver. We don't need to upgrade the charging system. We probably don't have an incompatible battery type. Laptop batteries fit very specifically into a slot. They're designed to fit a very specific battery. You can't take a battery from a different model laptop and expect that to fit into yours. They're very specific. And usually we're not swapping out a lot of batteries. We're using the same battery we've always used. How can battery type be incompatible? That doesn't make sense either. And as we've already seen, it's very common for an AC adapter to have a voltage, an input voltage between 100 volts and 240 volts. That's normal for these these power supply systems. The problem that we have here, or at least the most likely problem, if you look at all of these 5 different options, the most likely reason for a battery not charging is that it's 3 years old. So the 43% of you that said, aha, I think it's just an old battery, you're absolutely right. That happens a lot. I just upgraded a laptop system for my parents. When it was an older system that was running Vista, I installed Windows 7 on it because that particular piece of hardware doesn't support anything past Windows 7, but I got them at least up to Windows 7. And if you've gone from Vista to 7, you know how great that is. But the battery in an older system where that came with Vista, the battery was gone. It just never charged anymore. It was more than 3 years old. I bought a new battery, slid it in, and now we were good to go. No problems with that one. This is a lot. There are a lot of things you have to remember for this exam. Everything about operating systems and troubleshooting and laptop and mobile devices and command lines and everything else. And all of my videos have all of this content in them if you wanted to go through and watch all of them. And you could, of course, take notes and have all of that information available to you afterwards. But if you're like me, you don't have time to go through every single one of the videos. And sometimes taking notes is difficult because you're traveling, you're somewhere else, or you're just not in a place where you can take notes. Well, I've already done that part for you. My course notes, my A+ course notes, I have available for both the 220-801 and the 220-802. I've taken all of the important text, all of my graphics, all the information associated with these exams, and I've put them into a series of PDF course notes. You can see what these look like right here. The 801 is here on the left, and the 802 is on the right. So for the 801, if you wanted to learn about memory, you wanted to see all the different interfaces and device interfaces and connections you need to know about, they're in this PDF. There's some RAID communication there. For the 802, everything about operating systems, all the command line tools that you need to know for networking and operating systems, and so much more. It's all in these course notes. And even better, I've made the price on them something that anybody can afford. So for $10, you can get my set of 801 course notes. For $10, you can get my set of 802 course notes. And you can use these as maybe your last second before you go into the exam. You've got a week or 2 weeks. You just need everything summarized on one set of pages. They're in PDF format, so the instant you purchase them, you download them immediately, and you can put them on all of your devices. So especially if you have mobile devices, you have a laptop computer, put it on everything you have. So no matter where you are, you can study and get the information you need to know to pass your exams. And of course, every dollar of this goes back to support this website and what we are doing here. So I want to thank everybody for your support so far, and thanks for helping us out and looking at these course notes. You can find out more about these at professormesser.com/A+CN, APLUSCN. Maybe these course notes can help you as well. Let's do another question, shall we? Let's move our process along and see if we can get another one going. This question is about printing. Oh, we love our printing questions, don't we? Everybody says, I would just want all printing questions because I love printing so much. So, of course, I had to put a printing question on here. This one's about laser printing. And the question specifically is, why should you reset the page counter after installing a laser printer maintenance kit? There's got to be a good reason for that, right? Why would we need to know that on this piece? So let's see what our different options might be, shall we? Would it be that the fuser output levels are linked to the page counter? Would it be that the printer will stop printing when it reaches a certain value? Could it be that the amount of printer activity is sensitive information? maybe the printer maintenance should occur in regular intervals, or the output is higher quality when the print counter is low. So one of these would be the reason that you would reset the page counter after installing a laser printer maintenance kit. Now, if you think you know the answer, you can go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer Room and see if you can answer this particular question. In the chat room, people are saying, oh, the A+ exams, they sure like their laser printers. In fact, you need to know laser printers and impact printers and dot matrix printers and inkjet printers. All of these different printers are important. And you have so many different kinds that you will see in the workplace. You'll probably see laser printers more than any other type, though. So I think it makes sense that there is an emphasis in laser printing on the exam. I think it's one that you'll find everywhere. I've got a laser printer in my studio that I use for the tasks here. It's important to know, how does this operate? If I'm having a problem with it, where could the problem possibly be? And so you're going to want to look at that laser printer, see if you can figure out those pieces too. And you may be asked to perform some maintenance on this device. You may need to install a laser printer maintenance kit. And you may want to know that at the end, it tells you to reset the page counter. Why am I doing that? Why is that important? Is that something I need to know for the printer? And why am I doing this piece? Well, that goes to this particular question. Why are we doing this? Why should we reset that page counter? If you think you know, go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer Room. Let's see how we did. You can see that 20% have said the fuser output levels are linked to the page counter. 14% said the printer will stop printing when it reaches a certain value. 2% said there's sensitive information, this page counter. Nobody said that the output is higher quality when the print counter is low. The majority of folks said, 65% said the printer maintenance should occur in regular intervals, and that's why you would reset the page counter. So it's got to be one of these that we would use with page counters and being able to use them. These laser printer maintenance kits are fantastic. They're these little kits, and in the kit is everything you need to get the laser printer running in top condition. Because obviously these are mechanical devices. There's a lot of printouts that go through them. There's a lot of moving parts, and these moving parts wear out after a while. And these maintenance kits are a way that you can at least keep the parts that wear out the fastest at least up and running so that it performs a little bit better. These laser printer maintenance kits are going to replace things that are heating. There's pressure inside of these laser printers. And usually it's a standard kit that you would get. It has feed rollers inside of it. Sometimes there's cleaning materials. They might send a new fuser unit because fuser units get very hot and they'll wear out over time. So they may ask you to replace some small pieces or may have you replace some larger pieces inside of that printer. The real question is, of course, when do I know to perform the maintenance on this laser printer? I just don't do it every 6 months. It's not like these laser printers in our environments are all having the same amount of output. You might have one laser printer that prints 1 or 2 pages a week. Another laser printer might print 500 or 1,000 pages a week. You would not perform the same maintenance on either one of those systems. So the way that you do that is you look to see how many pages have been printed. And if you know how many pages have been printed, you can estimate when you might want to perform maintenance on that particular printer. This is one where you would get into the printer, you power everything down. In fact, maybe do it first thing in the morning so nobody's printed to that printer at all. So it's not going to be a little bit cooler than one that's been running all day to be able to do that. There is, you replace the components, you swap out all of the different feed rollers, you replace the fuser that's being sent, whatever happens to come with that particular maintenance kit. And when you're done, you reset the page counter back to 0 and you start counting again. That way you can look at the page counter a month from now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now and make a determination on whether you need to perform this maintenance task again. So we go look at our answers. Those of you that said D, the printer maintenance should occur in regular intervals, and that's why we would reset the page counter, you would have got this one absolutely correct. Those 63% of you were right. The fuser output levels are not linked to the page counter. The printer will not stop printing when it reaches a certain value. I guess technically the printer will stop printing someday when it reaches a certain value. That's not the correct answer, though. That's not why you reset the page counter. The page counter really isn't sensitive information. I guess it's interesting information, but really not sensitive. And the output is higher quality when the print counter is low. Although that may be true, technically, that may be an accurate statement. That's not why you reset the page counter. It's not why you would do that at all, to reset the page counter. The reason is that you need to know when to perform this maintenance at regular intervals. The best way to do this is to have those intervals based on the number of pages printed, and you wouldn't know that unless you start from 0 and determine how many of those it would be. That's why we reset the page counter. So those of you that answered D did a great job with that one. Let's do another question, shall we? This one is for mobile devices. On your mobile device, I guess really on anyone's mobile device, which of these should you configure for outgoing mail? I've got a list of things. You can see that list at Socrative.com in the Professor Messer room. Which one of these would it be to configure for outgoing mail? So you need to know your networking now, because now we've got a number of things we need to go through. And stop looking at your mobile devices. Stop. Nope. Get out of there. Don't look at those. You need to know this right offhand. When you're in the exam, you don't have your mobile device. Stop Googling these things. Is it IMAP? Is it SNMP? Is it POP3? Is it HTTPS? Is it RDP? Is it SMTP? It's got to be one of these, right? It's one of these 6 different options. It's only one of them. Which of these should you configure for outgoing mail on your mobile device? If you know the answer, you go to Socrative.com, you go to the Professor Messer room. See if you know what the answer happens to be. I flip over there so I can watch what people are putting in as their answers. I see it live in real time on my side, so I can see certain of the answers are popular. Others start gaining ground. It's like a horse race. I'm looking at these and trying to figure out that piece. Whenever I'm trying to figure out mail, it becomes a bit of a challenge, especially these mobile devices. These mobile devices are incredibly useful, but they're very involved in how they communicate back to our email systems. There's many ways that it could use. In fact, on the A+ exam, you need to be able to work with these mail systems no matter what they are. Are we using Google Mail? Are we using a different kind of mail protocol? Are we using Microsoft Exchange? And what would I configure to make that happen? And you could probably figure that out too. I think whenever I start working with these technologies, it's useful to have an understanding of where I would get that from. So let's see how we did with this one. I'm going to flip this over. And you can see that about half of us, 52%, if we had to pick the one that got the most number of votes, is SMTP. So that's pretty good. We know that coming in second was POP3. Coming in third at 19% was IMAP. 6% of us said SNMP. 1% said HTTPS. And nobody said RDP. Makes me sad there, being able to do that. Let's see what the different options might be for mail. And mail can be a bit of a challenge when you're trying to set this up on your mobile device. You've probably seen the protocols you use to retrieve mail on these mobile devices. Things like POP3 is a good example of a protocol that's been around for a very long time. In fact, we rarely use POP3 anymore because it's a very simplistic mail protocol. It goes out to your mail server, it grabs the mail that's there, and it downloads it, and it deletes it from the original place. Not exactly what we'd like, especially in these mobile devices. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad, I have a laptop, or I might be anywhere and I want to log in to the web front end of my mail to see what's going on. If I'm having this downloaded and then deleted, I can only see it on one device. And because of that, we often use a different mail protocol called IMAP to retrieve our mail. This way, we're able to access the mail on the server, bring a copy down, but still leave it out there on the server. And that way, no matter what I log into, I'll be able to see my mail. But our question was about sending mail. We were specifically asking which of these should we configure for outgoing mail. And the way that we would do that is through something called SMTP. You can see even on this screen, it's kind of hard to see, but there it is on my outgoing mail server. There's the host name, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol.example.com. SMTP is where you configure all of your outgoing mail. So if you're ever trying to figure that out, there'll usually be an outgoing mail section on your mobile device, and it has that piece there as well. This is one where when you start working with understanding where those are, you need to know what your outgoing mail server's name is or IP address. You need to understand what protocols are in use and the port numbers that are there so you can configure it. And usually there's a username and password you have to know as well. So it's the simple mail transfer protocol that's used for sending mail. So if you are one of the 50% that answered SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, then you got that one absolutely correct. There is SNMP that I put here. That is a network management protocol. So that's not the one we would use either. And of course, IMAP and POP3 are used for retrieving mail, incoming mail, not outgoing mail. That's why those would not be the correct answer. The correct answer is F, SMTP. Well done on that one. Half of you got that one absolutely correct. So let's see what we worked with anyway to figure out what those pieces are. Let's see another one that deals more specifically with displays. Let's do this one. This is one OLED. Which of these would be a disadvantage of OLED displays? Well, it's got to be one of these, right? We've got a number of different options. OLED display is certainly one that you will need to know for your A+ certification. Would a disadvantage be that they are expensive to produce? Do they consume relatively more power than other display types? The black levels are not accurate. They're thicker and larger than other display types, or they have slow refresh rates. One of these would be a disadvantage of OLED display. So you have to know what OLED is, and then you have to know what the advantages and disadvantages of that might be. If you happen to know the answer, go out to Socrative.com to the Professor Mess Room and you can answer it. You can tell me what you think the answer might be. OLED's an interesting technology to work with. It's one that we're certainly seeing a lot more of it these days. I think the industry itself is trying to figure out where do we use this? How do we use it? How can we take advantage of this particular technology? It's one where whenever you start working with them, OLED displays, that can be really, really useful. So if you know the answer, go to Professor Messer Room and Socrative.com and you can answer. You can tell me what you think it is. Got different things that we could choose in that list. I'm noticing on my list that we've got at least one here that's probably well in the lead. I don't think I fooled too many people with this particular answer. Maybe you happen to know what it is. I think most of you know what this one happens to be. Let's have a look at how we did. You can see that 68% of us said, A, it's expensive to produce, but 12%, double digits, said it consumes relatively more power than other display types. Only 9% said the black levels are not accurate, 5% thicker and larger than other display types. Slow refresh rates didn't score very well at all either. This is one where OLED can be very, very useful. But it's something that is a very specific kind of technology. It's organic. We're using very particular organic compounds to be able to produce this light. We send an electric signal, electric current through these particular pieces of organic material, and they emit a light. Very interesting, the technology and the way it works. It's a very thin technology. It's very light. We don't need glass. So we often see OLED on these smaller mobile devices where weight is of a concern, or when we are just trying to work with a smaller screen. They're very flexible to work with. There's no backlight because the organic material itself is creating the light. So I don't need an LED behind the screen. I don't need a fluorescent light behind the screen. Yeah, I know my head is blocking some of that. But what would you do if my head wasn't there? You wouldn't be able to see anything properly if my head wasn't there. Let's put it, there we go. Now my head's not in the way. You can actually see something. It's great that there's no backlight. That also means that there's really a nice true black color there. So you don't have a light in the back that is fading the blacks so that it doesn't look very nice. The lifespan, though, is a little bit shorter than the LEDs. These organic materials don't stick around for a huge amount of time. They wear out after a certain amount of time, and these can be a bit more expensive than using an LED. And in fact, that is the answer here, is that they're a little bit more expensive to produce. We can see that if you answered A, expensive to produce, you'd be absolutely correct. That would be the right answer. These OLEDs, this is a good example of having one on something like this screen. And in fact, there's gaming systems that they have a nice fast response time. So they work well with gaming systems, and they work well on these mobile devices because they're so light and being able to use them. I love to have that available. And I have a number of gaming systems. I have a Sony Vita, for instance, that has this OLED system in it. You just don't see a lot of it being used any longer. I think it's probably the expense associated with it and the fact that it's something that wears out relatively quickly that becomes more of a challenge, more of a problem for us. So you don't see it on a lot of the televisions these days. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to be able to work with those. But certainly whenever you are looking at smaller devices that need to be light, like something like a gaming device or something like a watch or something like a mobile, everything mobile. That's where everything's going after all. That's a great thing to use, to be able to use this. And I think that's one where you'd run into this quite a bit on these pieces. So if you are one of the folks that answered, let's have a look at those responses again. It'd be good if I was able to have that up on my screen so we could all see it. If you were answered A, expensive to produce, you'd be absolutely right. It does not consume more power than other display types. In fact, it's less, which makes it really good for these mobile devices. The black levels are very accurate. It is not thicker. It is not larger than other display types. It is smaller than other display types, and the refresh rates are very fast, which means A is our obvious example. It is a bit more expensive to produce relative to those other types. There is a lot of things you have to know for your A+ exam. There is so many different topics across so many different operating systems. And my friends at GTS Learning have created these labs that can step you through understanding how to do these things practically. Of course, on your A+ exam is not only these multiple choice questions. As I mentioned, they may be putting you into a command prompt and telling you to type things in. And there's nowhere to go there. You can't make a guess. You have to know exactly what to type. They may present you with a window screen. They may give you fill in the blanks. They may ask you to sort things or match things on the screen. And in those particular cases, you really need to know how this technology works. Now, fortunately, folks at GTS Learning have created a set of live labs that can do exactly this. I'm in one of these live labs right now that's about the event viewer. This particular lab just has a single device in it. You can see this particular machine, and I can use it. It's a full-blown Windows machine. It's not an emulated Windows. This is a real live Windows workstation, and I can go through the live lab to figure out what my steps should be. Step 1, Step 2, and Step 3, all the way through this piece. There's also other labs that I can go to as well. I'll go back over, user account management, disk management, file management, application management, using Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7. It's all here. So I don't have to have separate operating systems running maybe in virtual machines on my own desktop. I have everything right here. Boot troubleshooting. We were talking about using the recovery console. This would be the lab that allows me to do that. I'm going to drill down into this one. Here's the machine right here that I would use. And this one is the one where I'd step through all of those different processes of using the recovery console. In fact, it tells you exactly the way to use it for that particular step. This is one where all of these live labs are available for you to use, but maybe you aren't sure if this is really for you. What GTS Learning has done is give us an hour for absolutely free. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/live labs. And for $99, you have complete access to all of these labs, and you can move around and use them from whatever machine you happen to be on. I'm on a Mac operating system here, but because I'm running a modern browser, I don't have to have any special software. I didn't load anything extra to get this to work. I simply installed and ran this in Chrome or in Firefox, anything that supports HTML5. If you don't have something that supports HTML5, it can use Java as well. It's nice to be able to take advantage of some of those modern technologies. So you can try it yourself. Maybe this is something that works for you. Maybe it doesn't, but you won't know unless you give it a shot. And you can find out more and get your free hour of live labs at professormesser.com/live labs. Make sure you use that link for the special pricing. You get a discount automatically by using that link. It's a lot less expensive than going to the GTS Learning site directly. Use my special link, professormesser.com/live labs. And I want to thank the folks at GTS Learning for also supporting what we do here at Professor Messer. There is more questions to come, so let's do some more. These questions that we've got, in this one, we're looking more at a security type question. So let's see how we do with these questions. This one deals with host-based firewalls. And which of these would you be most likely to use a host-based firewall? By now, that most likely term should be ringing in your head, which means I really have to figure out exactly which one of these it's going to be. Is it going to be that, am I going to be most likely to use a host-based firewall to restrict inbound application use, to stop viruses before they execute in RAM, to block a known operating system vulnerability, to prevent browsing to specific URLs, or to block pop-up windows? And one of these is the most likely reason to use a host-based firewall. Some of these could, again, be technically accurate, that it could be used. It's something that could be part of using a host-based firewall, but we're looking for the most likely reason we would use a host-based firewall. If you think you know the answers, go to Socrative.com. You can figure out that piece too. Go to the room named Professor Messer, and you can answer these as well. Again, don't open up your firewall. Don't look around in that. Don't go to the Google. Just take a guess. See if you can figure out what that is. We're going to pretend we're on the exam right now and see what those are. Kyle's asking in the chat room if some of these performance-based questions might put you into more of a simulation or at a command line, or you have to click things on a screen. And the question is, does it track your clicks? Nobody knows. CompTIA does not share how they grade their exams. We don't know if you get partial credit. We don't know if you get full credit. We don't know the value of that particular performance-based question. We don't know the value of any question. We think each question is worth a different amount. So we're never quite sure with those pieces and getting it to work. That's one that you really have to work with and go through those processes. Getting those to work is it's a challenge because you're expected to know this immediately when you step into it, that it's really going to have exactly what you need. You're going to have to type in exactly what's expected of you at the command line. You need to be able to know exactly what to click on the screen. There's nothing to prompt you. So make sure that you know these things whenever you're working with those pieces and going through those particular examples. So let's see how we did with this one. And which of these would we be most likely to use a host-based firewall? Well, let's see. We're sort of a divided camp on this one. I think we've got two that we're really focusing on. 43% has the most number of votes, restrict inbound application use, but very close behind it at 30% is prevent browsing to specific URLs. There's also double digits, 11% said stop viruses, 10% said block pop-up windows, and hardly anybody at 6% said block a known operating system vulnerability. So that's when you really get into them and figuring it out. What the different host-based firewalls do. Well, let's look at a host-based firewall and what this really is. We often refer to these as personal firewalls or software-based firewalls. They're firewalls that are running in the operating system you happen to be using. And because they are in the operating system, they have a lot of control over what is happening with data going in and out of the OS. These are usually included with the OS. There are firewalls that are certainly shipping with Windows. There are inside of Mac OS. They come installed already with Linux. If you're using some type of operating system, they tend to have these firewalls already built in. There's third-party firewalls you can get as well. If you don't like the one that came with your operating system, you can install somebody else's firewall inside of your operating system. The key to a firewall is to allow or not allow a certain kind of network traffic to pass through the network. The pure firewall and being able to work with it is something that's focusing on traffic flows. And it's looking for, at the most basic level, should I allow a particular port number to pass? Now, since these are host-based firewalls, they know exactly what applications you're running in your operating system, and they can allow or disallow inbound or outbound traffic based on what application you happen to have using. In fact, the Windows Firewall does a great way of doing this. It looks by port number. It can look by application. It's got a lot of flexibility, but it's really focused on those particular types of security concerns. What type of traffic is going back and forth for the applications that I happen to be using? And that means that if we look at the different responses we have here, that we can restrict inbound application use. The 43% of you got this one absolutely right. It's a host-based firewall. It's really using the application visibility that happens to have inherent to the operating system. these host-based firewalls are not generally set up as URL filters. There are certainly third-party URL filters you can get, and certainly some firewalls, especially network-based firewalls these days, are very good at blocking things by URL category or a specific URL that you might put in here. That is not the most likely reason that you would use a host-based firewall. In fact, the Windows firewall doesn't have any URL filtering capability built into it. So that would not be the correct answer in this particular case. And those of you, the others, you knew this wasn't the case. It doesn't block pop-up windows. It doesn't stop viruses before they execute in RAM. That's something like an antivirus application. And blocking known operating system vulnerabilities is really the purview of an intrusion prevention system, not really something like a host-based firewall. In the case of host-based firewalls, we're really talking about the applications that are running. An application is the apps that you're running. It's the word processor you're using. It's the browser you're using. It's the spreadsheet you're running. That's the application that the host-based firewalls can really see. And that's where you're really going to get the most value from using these host-based firewalls. Let's move away from security so much. Let's do networking. I think a networking question would be a good one to go with. So let's go with this one. I want to know about valid private IP addresses. So you have to know for your CompT exam what a private IP address might be. So I've given you a list of private IP addresses, and I want you to pick two of them, or at least two of these on here are going to be private IP addresses. Is it 10.10.10.10? Is it 192.186.22.1? Is it 127.0.0.1? Is it 172.14.27.78? Is it 129.186.211.107? Is it 172.31.90.104? Two of these are valid private IP addresses, which means everything other than two of these is not a valid private IP address. Which two is it? Don't Google. Stop looking that up. If you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com to the Professor Messer Room, and you can answer this one as well and tell me what you think the valid private IP address might be in this list. And we are all over the place with this. No, we don't know the answer to this one. We think we know. Well, we're going back and forth. It's a horse race on this one. I'm watching the numbers go back and forth and to and fro. See if I can remember which one of these it is. I think I know what they are. I'm the one that wrote them. I wrote them 2 days ago. I'm trying to remember, what did I put on here? Which one is this? I'll go through the list. Is that one? Is that one? Is that one? They're very, you have to really read through these. This is one of the things that's important for the A+ exam, of course, is each one of these questions is asking very, very specific information. And it's giving you some very specific answers. You have to be able to read through them and really understand what the possibilities might be. You have to be able to get that. Yeah, it was a challenge just going through there and making sure I got all of those right on here. So it probably won't surprise you if we were to look to see how did we do with this one. It probably would not surprise you to see that we're all over the place. We are a mix. The only one that really didn't make anybody happy was E. 129.186.211.107. Nobody picked that one. But we are effectively neck and neck for all the others. It could be A, B, C, D, or F. Any one of these seems to be this piece. So which one is it? Which one of these would be the private IP addresses? Well, private IP addresses were created originally because we were running out, or we could very easily see a time when we would be running out of IP addresses. So we blocked off a set of 3 groups and said, if we're going to use any of these groups of IP addresses, then we're not going to route those over the internet. In fact, if a router sees this, it's not going to route it across the internet. It might route it internally in your network, but we're not going to route it on those internet routers. And these are the 3 groups. It's a group that starts with the 10 dot range, we call it, the 10.0.0.0 through 10.255.255.255. That's an easy one because if an IP address starts with 10, it's a private IP address. Very common to see a 10 dot IP address on a corporate network because you have such a large number of addresses. You have 16 million addresses you can create. It's a Class A address, or what we traditionally have thought of as a Class A address, which which really means we can subnet this and put it on all of our different locations. It's a great way to do it. There's a smaller section. This is what effectively turns out to be 16 Class Bs, 172.16.0.0 through 172.31.255.255. So if an IP address is in that range, it's more than just 172. It's 172.16 through 172.31, just before we get to 172.32. And then there's the range that we'll see often on our home-based or SOHO-based routers is the 192.168.0.0 through 192.168.255.255. That's the third group. So if it's any one of those three groups, it's a private IP address. Everything else is used for some other purpose, either a public IP address or a reserved IP address or a loopback IP address or something else. But if it's any of these three groups, we consider it to be a private IP address. This is one of those where you just have to memorize it. You just have to sit down with the actual memorization of it and really know what it is. If you're watching this for continuing education units, in fact, you should go and send me, go to the top of the Professor Messer website where it says contact us, and send me a note, say that you're watching the September study group and that the secret code is RFC 1918, which is the RFC used for these private IP addresses. RFC 1918 is your special code to send me. So if we look at these IP addresses, 10.10.10.10, well, it starts with a 10. So if it starts with a 10, that's a private IP address. If you selected A, that's one of the ones that is absolutely correct. 192.186.22.1, I reversed some letters, some numbers on that one, didn't I? 192.168 would have been a private IP address. 192.186, however, is a public IP address. So that's not a correct answer. B would not be correct. 127.0.0.1 is your internal loopback for your operating system. So that's not a private IP address. That's very specifically a loopback. 127.0.0.1 is not a correct response. C would not be correct. 172.14.27. So 172.14 is outside that scope of 172.16 through 172.31.255.255. It's outside that block, so therefore D would not be a correct answer. 129.186, I tried to flip these numbers around again. 192.186, 129.186, just made it up. That's a public IP address. So 172.31.90.104 certainly fits in that category of 172.16 through 172.31, but we just barely made it at the very end of that group. That would be a private IP address. So if you answered A or if you answered F, you would have got these absolutely correct. The chat room's angry about this one. How can that even be possible? What in the world happened? How did I not get that one? So I think that was a pretty good one for us to work through. You will see on the exam objectives, you need to know these particular topics. If you don't have the exam objectives, go out to professormesser.com/objectives, download these objectives. They make a great checklist. They'll tell you everything you need to know for the exam. I still see people taking their exam, and the response I get from them when they come out of their exam is, I didn't even understand half the stuff that was asked of me. I never saw these topics before in my life. And so they didn't download the objectives because CompTIA tells you everything you need to know for the exam. It's absolutely in this list. ProfessorMesser.com/objectives, or go to that Google machine and just type in CompTIA exam objectives. You will be able to get that absolutely know everything there is to know for that particular piece. When we finish today, we're coming up the end of our first hour of the study group. We have another hour of things that I like to go through. I'll open up the phone line, so don't go away. But if you're here for the study group, we have another one of these next month in October the 14th. If you ever want to know when the next study group is, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar, because I do study groups for A+, for Network Plus, for Security Plus. There's usually something going on somewhere associated with these study groups, and you're more than welcome to join us with those as well. There is, of course, things I do when I'm not in the study group. So Twitter, you can go to professormesser.com/Twitter/YouTube. Just go to professormesser.com/something, and you will find me on whatever media that happens to be. There is, of course, my course notes if you're interested in supporting what we do here. I don't take donations, but this might be something that you can use before you go into your exam. It's ProfessorMesser.com/A+CN for the course notes. Thanks again to GTS Learning and their live labs, which you can see and try for absolutely free for an hour at ProfessorMesser.com/live labs. And as I mentioned, I, of course, do these study groups all the time. You can have great fun. Come join us where you can do that as well. Well, we've come to the end of yet another monthly study group. I want to thank everyone for joining us live. If you're here live, stick around for the phone calls afterwards, and see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone. I know we missed some questions there. These were a little bit harder. I think I was able to accomplish the goal I had of making these questions really hard. Not really hard, but harder. I wanted there to be at least some you really had to think about. Like, is that really what it's going to be? I think we got a good group of them this time. We really figured out which ones were good and which ones were not. So let's get the phone lines open, whether you call in or not. We'll at least have the phone line sitting there, shall we? If nothing else, they'll at least be sitting there. I'll start the show so you can at least call in and sit on hold, and then everyone gets to listen to me call in and connect to the call that's on hold. Let's call this up. See if I can hear it. Can I hear it? Oh.
Please enter your show number.
I need to enter my show number. If I can remember what that is.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
All right. See if that
Welcome,
works.
host.
Welcome. Welcome. I am now in here. So if you wanted to also call in, there's the phone line. So it's 855-785-7545. That number again, 855-785-RJ45. It's one you can call toll free on Skype. How do we do with the questions this time? You know, that's one of those that I think we did pretty good with those pieces. There's a lot of questions I have to sit through whenever I'm building out these questions, because I write all of these questions just from scratch. So I kind of look at the questions that have come through during the month. I look at questions you've sent me, and I just try to figure out what would be the right way to make that happen. That's one that really have to go through, because I've gone through a number of these questions, then I've gone back and I've changed the question itself, and I've changed the way the answers would be so that it would make you think with those pieces. So that becomes very useful to have that there. The phone lines that have opened, if you haven't joined us before, they're just open phone lines. We don't have to talk about anything particular. It doesn't have to be a particular topic with these. I just have the phone lines there, something I like to do just so people can call in. You can, of course, put something in the chat room as well for that one. And I can answer chat room questions in there too. They could be test questions. I don't see test questions. I don't try to emulate test questions. I'm really trying to ask you questions where you can learn the objectives. I think that's a better way to do that. Let's go to the phone lines then. We have the 908 area code probably. Are you there, caller? What's your name? I hear myself. Can you hear me? I hear me. It's going to time out. There's going to be a loop.
I heard a beep.
Oh, there's a beep. Yes. Are you there, caller?
Probably. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Okay, yeah, that's me. I'm on a delay. You can call me Alex.
All right, Alex. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you today? Yeah, you may want to turn that down so you can actually hear what's going on the phone. Mute it, or you need to mute me on the YouTube. So you can see there's like a 15 to 30-second delay.
I have been studying and preparing for the A+ exam.
Great.
And so when I pass the exam, what I'm looking for is where I should be applying, because I'm looking to get into like computer repair, et cetera, troubleshooting.
Sure.
So once I'm fully certified, Professor Messer, where do you recommend, or how do you recommend go about actually searching and finding jobs?
This is the ultimate question, isn't it? Because that's really what we're trying to do with the certifications. That's what we're trying to figure out by going through the certification process is how do we get either the first job in technology or to move up to a different job in technology. One of my first jobs was not really one that I dealt with certifications. I didn't have to know very much going into the position, but I had a 4-year degree when I got that position. So certifications are going to help. It's not just about certifications, but it can certainly help you. At least people will know some of the knowledge that you happen to have. I think one of the best ways to do this is not to just rely on sending out the resumes to everybody, but to instead think about how you can get in the door somewhere. Your very first technical job with an IT group or first technical job is not going to be your last technical job. It's one that's going to start you along your way in what you're doing. A lot of people will start with getting some practical experience, and that's a very good way to get your foot in the door in other places. And I've seen the chat room most recently this last month, and other people have done this as well in the past, is they'll volunteer somewhere and take care of their computers, fix some of the printers they happen to have, repair some of the systems that aren't working properly, and get some experience doing that so you can put that on a resume and said, oh yeah, I've been doing this a long time. I've been working with these folks. Plus, you're able to network if you have in your particular geographical area a user group meeting of some kind. Maybe it's a Microsoft user group meeting. Maybe it's one that's just a technician, a technical user group meeting. Look around at other places. Meetup.com is a good place to go to find those and meet some of the people that are out there in IT already, because they're going to have a help desk. They're going to have printers. They're going to have laptops. They're going to have computers. They will have a need to have those devices maintained. So the more people you know in the industry, the easier it is to at least call around, to send them a LinkedIn, to send them an email and say, I noticed that at your organization, you've got some openings. If you recall, we met at the meeting last month. Is there somebody in particular I should contact? That may be a good foot in the door as well. I think it's not just any one thing. You really should be taking advantage of every possible communication method out there. And of course, get the certifications and get the knowledge you need to be able to show somebody that you know this information. Is this something where this would be your first IT position, or would this be one that you're growing or expanding on? Did I lose Alex? I may have. In any case, you've really got the ability to not just focus on any particular type of communication method. Take advantage of all of these if you can. In fact, if you can get into and really know the people in these organizations, quite honestly, that is the best way to get in. Whenever I've gone through about 3 or 4 jobs in my career where somebody I knew was already working there. And that's one of the best ways to do it, because they know you, they know your family, they know your disposition, they know that you're trustworthy. It's all of those things that are important to have in an employee. So if you happen to know somebody in an organization, that may be one of the best places to go as well. I can't say that all those jobs were the best possible job I could have ever had, but you're growing. You start at one place, you get some experience, and you move up. My very first job, I was delivering cables and monitors and printers to companies. Some of it was upgrading memory. Some of it was upgrading and installing hard drives for the very first time. But some of it was take this cable over to this company because we forgot to send it today. So my job was to get in a car with a printer cable, drive it to a company, take it into a room, plug in the printer cable. Thanks. Go to the next one. That's not something that is technically difficult. I have a 4-year degree in business management and I'm installing printer cables. But that's how it works. You start with that one and you work your way up. So hopefully that's giving you some perspective, Alex. Does that make sense? I think we lost Alex there. Nope, there you are. Maybe not. In any case, I think that's one that can help you when you're going through that process of figuring out those pieces. So maybe that will help you as well on there. Let's go to another call. The 757 area code, maybe. Are you there, caller? Caller. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Say your name. Say your name. So we'll know who you are. Are you there, caller? Hello, hello. I'll put you back in the queue. Maybe you stepped away for those pieces. Let's go to the next call then, the 240 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Hello, caller. Are you there, caller? There's a beep that you'll hear, by the way. So you'll know when I come on the line because you'll hear beeping noise. You'll notice I don't have a call screener. I am my call screener. I'm a very good call screener. Can't you tell? It's one of those when you're starting to work with. Let's go to maybe the 215 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hello?
Hey, what's your name? What's your name, caller?
Hello?
Hey, what's your name? I can hear you. Say something, caller. Are you there, 215 area code? Is it me? Did I
Hello,
do
is anybody there?
I am here. Are you there? We're going to return you to the queue. Maybe it is me. Maybe it's me that I'm just trying to do this. We'll go back to 757. Are you there, caller?
Hello?
Hi, what's your name? Maybe.
Is anyone there?
We are absolutely here. We are so here. Are you there? That's one maybe I need to call back in. I'm going to return you to the queue, and we'll see if we can figure this piece out. This is one wherever I'm starting to work with these. Let's take some calls, some questions then from the chat room as well. I'm asking about vouchers, and those pieces can come in handy. Let me see if I can call back on my Skype line. Nope, I'm good there. Let's see on my Skype. Where am I? Would it be bad if I was calling in? There it is. I think, nope, that looks good too. Always worry that I've muted myself and I can't see anything, can't hear anything when it's going through. In the chat room, the vouchers and working with those, they can be useful. There's directions on how to use the vouchers on the voucher page on professormesser.com/vouchers. It's a single code. It works for any of the CompTIA vouchers there. And you just use the same voucher discount both times. Now, if you have one voucher, you have to have multiple vouchers for each exam, unless there's one. Sometimes you can buy a voucher that also has a retake. If you fail the first time, it has a free retake associated with it. But you have to have, you're taking 2 exams, you need 2 vouchers. That's one thing that's important for the A+ exam. Is you have to pay twice. You have to pay for the first 801 exam, and you have to pay for the 802 exam. So it's one of those that you do actually have to have. Sometimes you can find a voucher that's a combo, but it's giving you 2 vouchers. There's separate numbers for those, and make sure you have the right ones to be able to work with. And you can use that 10% off code. You can buy as many vouchers as you would like and use that 10% off code every single time for those. It makes it very, very easy to work with and being able to use. Let's see if I'm been able to get this going again. Are you there, caller? Can you hear me? Hi, are you there?
Hello, Professor?
Hi, can you hear me? I guess you can't. I guess I can hear you,
Hello?
but you can't hear me. Oh, that's a shame. I think if I disconnect, that may be an issue here. So I'm not going to on that piece. We'll take some messages from the chat, from the chat in here as well. For the 801, that's right. The pricing for the 801 with the discount about $175, $174 for those. A little bit of a challenge. And you're right. Josh in the chat room is talking about in the exam. He's getting ready to take the 801, 802. And there's no Windows 10 questions on the 801 or 80, specifically the 802 exam. In fact, there are no Windows 8 questions on the 802 exam. That's how fast this technology has moved. Whenever the 802, the 800 series exams came out, we had just really released Windows 8. So 3 years have gone by. The next version of Windows is out, Windows 10. So that's one of those that can really be a challenge in being able to work with those. I'm going to restart my Skype. So you need to know for the exam, XP, Vista, and Windows 7. CompTIA has said we're going to come out with a new version of the A+ exam by the end of the calendar year. So if they do that, we expect there'll be other operating systems. They change around what OSs would be expected for you to know. But you'll still be able to take the 800 series, we think, for another 6 months. That's usually how they do it. So if that's the case, you'll still have plenty of time to be able to do that, to take your current exam. So don't wait. There's no reason to wait to take your certification. You should always be going through and trying to take and get that certification now. Don't wait when you're talking about trying to get a certification. That just would not make any sense at all. So let's see if I can connect back
Thank
up.
you for calling.
You're very welcome for me connecting and doing that. Let's type in some things here. Well, that's 4 of those 17 numbers.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
Well, sure, I'll do that.
Welcome.
Welcome. Let's try taking one of these calls again in this. Let's go to the caller on the 757. Are you there, caller?
I would like to thank you.
Oh,
I watched your Network Plus, all
Yes.
of the videos, and that has really, really helped me. I passed, and I didn't just pass. I did well.
Great.
I did. I got an A.
Nice.
And tomorrow I actually have a knock interview at a network operating center
Nice.
at a school, and I just wanted to thank you. I feel that I just want to thank you personally. Thank you so much for your videos. It has really helped me learn. I have no IT experience, and tomorrow I have an interview.
This the NOC's a great place to start too. My first job that was in a corporate environment was in, we called it a help center, but it was really an area of a floor of a building at an insurance company where it was kind of like a NOC, where we had a network operations center where we had the status messages all up on the screen and we could see what the status is of the network. And we took the calls from the users when they were having a problem. It's a great place to learn about really every part of IT, because you hear about the people working on the network, working on the servers, working on the databases, and especially in a school system, you tend to have every possible technology you can think of. It's just a great place to learn about what's going on. And while you're there at your interview, ask them about those things. What type of networks do you have here? What type of servers are you using? What type of operating system are you using? Are you moving people to Windows 10 already? Find out more about what they're doing. I think the more you have interest in what they're doing with their networks, the more they're going to realize you might be someone who might want to work there as well. So that's exciting. I'm very glad to hear about your certification, and I'm glad to hear about your interview as well. No idea if you can even hear me. but I think that's fantastic. There is that's what you're trying to do after all, is get that foot in the door. Whenever I'm reading I'll go to Reddit. There's some great subreddits that talk. There's a CompTIA subreddit. There's a sysadmin subreddit. There's a computer science career subreddit. There's a lot of different subreddits. And I hear people talking about certifications as if they are this one thing, that it only provides you with this one type of capability. And I think it's a little bit limiting to think of it that way. There's so much functionality that you get, things you learn on how to use computers and use the technologies when you're going through the process. But I think it's even better that you're learning something that you can now communicate with someone else about. And that's one of the real keys with IT, is we're trying to blend together the human part of it with the technical part of it. You can't do that unless you understand both of those. It's not just about the computers. Let's see if these callers can hear me now. If I go to the 281, are you there, caller? This is fantastic. Wait, well, I can hear me. I hear me talking. I just don't hear anyone else, or they can't hear me. Let's try again. Let's try 661. Are you there, caller? He probably hears my beeping noises that are there. Let's go back to the queue on that one as well. We'll do one more, and then I'll give up. 267 area code. Are you there, caller? You are, but I am not.
I heard a beep.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. So something is not working quite right. I don't think it's on my side. I think it's my chat room or my pickup system here that is able to make that happen. So I'll have to find out more about what those are going. If you do have a question, then go to the chat room, because I'm watching the chats go by and everybody looking at how this works. Oh, somebody's looking at my website in Linux. It doesn't look right. I'll have a look at that when I'm done here today. We'll see how it looks with that piece. This is one for those of you that have been kind of watching the website. I did an upgrade to the content management system for my website just over a week ago, about a week and a half ago, and it's one where I use WordPress to make everything work. So I upgraded the WordPress because it was in bad need for an upgrade. It was important, and one of the things I used to make things work on my website wasn't working properly. So I upgraded the theme of the website. So it looks very similar to the old website, but it's really completely rewritten. So it's one where everything looks kind of the same. The fonts are the same. The graphics are in the same place. It's kind of similar. But one of the things is that there are differences in the CSS. So I'm tweaking things and changing things. So if there's one that's having a problem, if you see something weird, it just doesn't look right, let me know, because I'll be glad to have a look at it and see what's going on there. So somebody asking for the pinouts for straight through cabling. That's an important one to know for your Network Plus exam. Somebody must be studying for that. The A Plus exam, you do need to know that as well. The 68A and 68B, the 568A and B is important to know on the networking side. Nice to be able to do that. Knowing the differences between the A and B and knowing what those color codes are is important as well. So yeah, make sure you know those. It's not just a straight through. It's not just point A to point B and it works. You need to know that there are very specific colors that go along there because it's a twisted pair, and being able to have those twisted pairs in the right place with the right signal going through them is the important part. The signal that's going on these twists has to be the same signal but the reversed polarity. So we want to make sure that if we're wiring these up, that everybody is sending the right signal down the right wire, or else it's not going to work the way you would expect it to work. Somebody in the chat room, Jots, is asking about that new, I think it's a USA series, Mr. Robot, which is a very technically accurate, from the clips I've seen, a very technically accurate depiction of security technologies for a change. Isn't that great? I would watch television. This is one of the problems. If you know what's going on with operating systems and security and the way networks work, and something happens in a show, that doesn't work that way. There's no way you can type that in, or they type it in. Like when they're logging in, some of the most extravagant login screens you will ever see is in a movie or on a television show. Like, where are they getting these login screens from? This is amazing. There's logos that are circling around, and you're typing things in, and there's things moving around on the screen, and the messages it gives you. You can just keep typing in, trying passwords. I can try 20 passwords. It never slows down. And Mrs. Professor Messer gets very frustrated with me because that doesn't work like that. You can't, that doesn't happen. She goes, just go with it. Buy the premise, buy the bit. It's a television show. But with the few things that I have seen with Mr. Robot, which is a very adult show, but it's also very technically accurate from the security piece of it. I don't watch a lot of television though. I just don't have time. I'm busy writing or creating content. So I just don't see much TV. If I do have spare time, I do gaming. That's my outlet, is if I can get my frustrations out on a gaming screen. That's much better. Before we started the study group, I was talking about the Destiny update, and what's coming in the new Destiny piece. So that was the one that was important to me. That's at least this week. That's the one that's important to me. Student of the game in the chat room is asking if the 802 test requires more memorization than the 801. I don't think that there's more memorization. It's a different kind of exam because it's testing you on what you know and applying some of those things, especially the troubleshooting section. But the sections on operating systems, you have to know what the minimum requirements are for Windows 7. For example, and you also have to know what some of the features are for the different editions of Windows 7. That's almost pure memorization. It's almost the same as the 801, where you have to memorize the SATA standards or the lengths of cables that you can use for networks. It's a similar thing. There's probably more of that in the 801, So there's probably a little bit more rote memorization on the 801 than the 802. 802 is also more about knowing where things are in the operating system, how to use the recovery console, things like that. So I think a lot of people tend to think the 801 as more just memorization. The 802 is memorization and applying some of those concepts. So maybe that's a good way to look at it. Again, grab the exam objectives, go through the list of exam objectives, and you're going to be fine with that. I think that's where you really want to focus is on the exam objective piece. So I won't be able to take phone calls today. I apologize that my sending side on my side is not working so much, but that's the key. Now, in the chat room, asking about the interactive type of questions, both the 801 and the 802 exam have performance-based questions. Now, the term performance-based, many people think of that as a simulation. In fact, I see people using the term, I'm going to go look at the sims. I need to look at what simulations will be expected of me. But the performance-based questions might be things other than simulations. You might be asked to fill in the blank. You might be asked to match things on the screen. On the YouTube, CompTIA has a video. I know I bring this up every time, and my challenge, of course, is I got to find it every time. But there's a video called Taking a CompTIA Exam. And when you look at this video, they go through the process. I'm not even going to turn the volume up because it's a little bit annoying with the...
To help you during the test.
There you go. So they'll go through what the test looks like, and then they go through the question types. And I think this is important. Multiple choice. Well, I think we're familiar with that. Multiple response, where you have to answer more than one. Fill in the blank questions. Matching questions with the drag and drop. So you have to be able to put them in the right place. They've got questions that have exhibits. So you click a button, you see a picture, and then you have to answer what you're seeing in the picture. And then, of course, the simulation questions themselves, where you do have to type something at the command line. So you might get any one of these. Now, what's interesting about this is that on the 801, there are no command lines listed in the exam objectives. So for the 801, you probably won't have this kind of simulation question. All of the commands that you need to know at the command line are in the 802. So you would certainly be more apt to get a simulation type of performance-based question on the 802 than on the 801. So that's where you would see that. As far as what's on the exam, I'm just going to delete that from the chat because it is a violation of your candidate agreement to discuss what you saw on the exam, and therefore something that I don't like to have people do, show that piece on there. So make sure that if you're going through and trying to figure those pieces out, that we don't describe what's on the actual exam. That's an important part too. In the chat, people are asking also, I see this also, I get throughout the month, this question comes up a lot. I'm taking this version of the exam. I've studied for a previous version of exam. What's the difference? So here in the chat room, somebody said for the Network Plus, the N10005 was retired at least the English-speaking version of it was retired at the end of August. So on September the 1st, the only one you could take is now the N10006. People want to know what are the differences. So make sure you download the exam objectives. That's going to be your best way to really look at the differences. There are generally minor updates between versions, but some of these updates can change the structure, and some of those 20% of improvements or differences some of them are entire sections. In other places, they're changing what's in the existing sections. So you won't have to start over at the beginning, but you do want to become familiar with what the new format is. Make sure you go to the exam objectives to be able to know that. Download them. If you don't see the last version of the exam objectives, Google that specific version with a file type of PDF. There's a command you can use. Here I'm gonna show everybody how to cheat the Google machine. How to cheat using the Google machine. So if you're looking for a PDF and you want to find it, this is one way to kind of circumvent the sometimes getting what you need. If I'm looking for the 220.801 and I put file type of PDF, it will now find everything with a file type that happens to be a PDF. So the first thing that comes up is the CompTIA 801 objectives, and it's the PDF version. So there's a good example of how you can find a PDF very, very quickly without going through. So if you're trying to find the old version of the Network Plus exam, you can now go through and try to figure that piece out too. You can go to Google and try to search for those. In fact, if I go to Google and I look for the N10005 file type PDF, you will find the last version of the 005 objectives first thing right there, right at the top. So that's one where it can be very easy to find some of those that you're looking for. That's where whenever I start working when trying to find something on the internet, there's a lot of different little commands like that. File type is a good example. Cite : is one where I'm just looking for something on a particular website. So if you're looking for something on ProfessorMesser.com, you can type in something like Ethernet standard cite : ProfessorMesser.com, and the only responses you will get are those that match ProfessorMesser.com. So it's a good way to do that. From the chat. That's one. Well, unfortunately, if you had a question on an exam and it stumped you, I'm afraid you're going to have to keep it to yourself, because it would be a violation of your exam candidate agreement to describe what that particular question was. You can't talk about it. You signed an agreement with CompTIA that said you would not. So it's effectively a non-disclosure for the exam. So you won't be able to do that. The question came up. I saw that come up before. I'm sorry I didn't address it. Would I be making any podcasts that are not videos? I used to do some podcasts. I used to do What a Week, and I used to have a podcast. What a Week was just sort of here's some cool things we saw this week. And I used to do a podcast called The Mobile Classroom, where I would take a particular product or topic and I would just talk about it that week. I just don't do those anymore. So I do provide for sale all of my certification videos in MP3 format. That might be an option if you're looking for training videos, but instead of the video part, you just got the video in an audio format, in an MP3 format. That's one way to do it. And you can find that on the Professor Messer website. If you look at the video purchase page, there is an option there for the audio purchase as well. So one of those might be an option. Now, Anthony is having a problem that he sent me an email earlier, and I've been a bad host and not responded to it, where you've got your machine is not finding the master boot record or not finding where the operating system is on a disk. So there's a couple things you can do, and in the chat room, people have already said, run the fix boot, in this case, I think it's Windows 7. So we already went through the boot rec commands for fix MBR, the boot rec commands, and we can see all those. Anthony's tried those, and those did not help. One of the things that you might have run into is that the operating system or the partition that has been set as the active partition is not the right one. So you may have to go through your system at the command prompt and run through a couple of different pieces. In fact, let me bring up something that might help us in our search for this. Let's see if I can find my commands for troubleshooting this. I have to find through all of the different pieces. I think I've got the disk command here. There is a set of important command line tools that you can use for the operating system that can help you through at the command prompt. The one that will help you probably the most, the thing you're going to want to look at, and I don't have all of the different parameters here, but go into DiskPart, which is the disk partitioning program that you can run from your recovery console. And this will show you things about what is on the drive. In fact, you can list the volumes. It will show you what volumes are there, what drive letters are associated with those, what labels are associated with those, file systems, the file types, the sizes, are they healthy? And you can see which ones have been set as the boot partition. And you may want to check and make sure that a particular partition has been set properly as the boot partition. If it's not, it won't boot from it properly. The master boot record will pass things off to the volume and the volume control, and it won't know where to go from there. So make sure that you look at the disk part. It may just be changing the parameters that are in your partitions to get it to work properly. That may be the trick you need to go through those pieces. You can always reinstall the OS. That ultimately will redo all of those pieces. But of course, reinstalling the operating system won't help if you still don't have the correct boot partition set. You would have to remove the partitions, install the partitions again, and then reinstall the operating system for it to work properly. So that was one of the challenges too. So at that point, it's less about the operating system and more about which partition is really the boot partition. And that's one where you just have to become familiar with what partitions are here. Where are they set up? Because for Windows, it's an easy one. It goes from the master boot record, goes to your volume boot, and then it's booting up the OS. The What a Week was a good podcast. It was fun. It was one that I did with Mrs. Professor Messer. We would do together, and we'd find all kinds of crazy things throughout the week. It was more of a odd thing of the week we happened to find, or a cool thing of the week we would happen to find. In fact, there was one we were talking about the other night where it was, I want to say, the National Zoo in Washington. It may not have been, but one of the zoos in the United States had a hissing cockroach, a big setup that they had with a lot of hissing cockroaches. I don't remember if it was a brand new exhibit or if it was one that was, they were celebrating the exhibit. They were celebrating the hissing cockroach, and they were selling chocolate cockroaches. So we bought some and we ate them on the air. So on the podcast, that was great. How often do you get to eat a chocolate hissing cockroach? Now, it wasn't a cockroach. It was a chocolate bar shaped like a cockroach. It was not a chocolate covered hissing cockroach. No hissing cockroaches were harmed in the eating of the chocolate. Mrs. Professor Messer would not eat a cockroach. She's not into the eating of odd things. Nor am I, interestingly enough, but I'm a guy, so I'm not going to say that out loud. I'll eat a cockroach. Won't eat a cockroach. Not going to happen. There are Linux certifications out there. There are, in fact, this came up before. There's LPIC is a company that does Linux certifications, and CompTIA has contracted with LPIC, and that's where the Linux Plus comes from. It is a exact duplicate of the LPIC certification exam. So that would be that. Yeah, you will definitely never be impressed. And if you will be impressed if I ate a real chocolate insect, then I'm just going to have to live with your disappointment. I think I'm fine with that. There's no problem in my mind that's an issue. That's not one of those times where I'm going to be upset. We're just going to let that one go. I'm married with 3 kids. My concern about others' disappointment of me was lost a long time ago. That's not even part of my world at this point. I'm on the internet. I don't have any type of concern about that piece of it. I have been in other countries. I used to travel extensively internationally. I had a job where I was international marketing, and it's one where I've been to countries where off the street you could buy insects and eat them, and it was intriguing. It was nice, and I never had them. So that's just how it is. Ate a worm in biology class for extra credit. I should do something like that on my study group. I should Skype in with somebody. We'll have the video, and we'll have them. No, we won't do that. I think if I brought this up in a staff meeting, because I do have staff meetings from time to time, not that I have a staff, but I have Mrs. Professor Messer, and I bounce things off of her. She's one that does tell me, maybe you shouldn't do that. And I think that was one of those examples where she would tell me that. Okay, a question on the chat room. You're an older guy. You got no experience. You want to work in a data center. Would I suggest getting the A+ and work as help desk and work your way up? Or get the Network Plus and goes to the data center? It's a good question. And it's one of these answers that the normal path is you get your A+, you get in at the help desk, and you go from there. It's kind of what I did back in the day when I was starting out. There was no A+ certification. You got certifications from the computer manufacturers. So I had a certification from Compaq at the time. They were a big manufacturer of PCs. I got a certification from IBM. They were making tons of PCs at the time. And so I had those certifications so I could go other places that were buying Compaq and IBM computers, and they knew that I was familiar with the hardware. it's one where having some type of experience is also going to be valuable as well. This is sort of the challenge. If you don't have experience, you need to somehow find a way around that, because experience is a very powerful thing. And that's why I was mentioning earlier about knowing people in these organizations, going to the study groups and the meetups and the user group meetings. It's very, very useful to have that. So you have to compensate somehow by not having the experience. And it's that catch-22 that everybody has when they're getting into the workforce. People want experience, but I don't have any. How am I ever going to get a job if they won't hire me because I don't have the experience? Yeah, that's the challenge. But just because somebody puts on a job posting that you need 2 years of experience doesn't mean that you have to have 2 years of experience. They could still hire you without it, but you need to make sure you can compensate in other ways. And you don't want to do too much. A Network Plus certification is good, but if you're just going into a help desk, you run into these situations where you walk in, you have no experience, but you have an A+, a Network Plus, a Security Plus, a couple of Microsoft certifications, a VMware, and they're looking at you like, wait a second, you hold on, we need to get you this far first. Then we can go to the network. Then we can go to security. I kind of have to tell people all the time, you don't just start in the security group. You never start in security. You always start with operating systems, with networking, and then you get a big foundation of those, and then you get into security. So you don't tend to start on the Security Plus side either. You tend to start with other technologies, and then that leads you into the security world. The Security Plus and the security certifications you'll find out there are very useful, but you never start there. You always end up there. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of this industry, is that this is something that wherever you start with, you aren't going to be doing this. I started delivering those printer cables that lasted 9 months, and then I started working at this help desk, effectively for an insurance company. That lasted 5 years. It was great. You could suit and tie every day. You walk in, it was professional. It was a great job, especially you learned about a lot of different things. Network operating systems, desktop support, mainframe technologies, wide area networks, router switches, and networking infrastructure. You learn the basics there. From there, went to work for a company that made network analysis devices. Really, I went to a VAR from there. So I went to a company that was selling these things that these company was using, and then from there went to a manufacturer. I never thought when I started delivering printer cables that I would be doing this. That never in any approach of my mindset thought that this is what this would turn into, but the path just leads you there, and you never end up doing something all the way through your IT career. You end up following your interest. And what's great about IT is it doesn't matter what your interest is. There's probably a need for it somewhere. Find your niche, find what you really enjoy doing in IT, go after that niche. When you start doing that and you become the expert in what that thing is, now everybody wants that particular value add that you can bring. So that's how it worked for me anyway. So I think that's where it all works out. And it's a challenge because some people who are hiring are looking for a 4-year degree and they don't care about certifications. Other employers are looking for certifications and don't put as much value on a 4-year degree. Other people are looking for only experience. Some employers are specifically looking for someone who doesn't have experience. Wait a second. Why would somebody want to hire somebody with no experience? Because they can pay you less and you're going to learn on the job. So it depends on their philosophy of how they're hiring. Don't just start or expect everybody's going to have the same hiring philosophy. Ask them, what are you looking for? What are you looking for, Mr. Hiring Person? Because they're going to ask you, do you have any questions? Ask them, what are you guys looking for? When you're hiring for this job, are you looking for someone with lots of experience? Are you looking for someone who has their own lab at home that works with those things? Are you looking for somebody who doesn't necessarily know exactly these things, but they're willing to learn? If this is something that you're going to hire me for, that's great. But if you don't end up hiring for me for this job, what should I be doing so that you will hire me next time? Those are the questions that will not only get them remembering you, but it will also get you understanding what they're looking for. And what you'll find is that everybody's going to have a different answer, because all of these different companies have different philosophies. They have different budgets. They have different requirements. A lot of people will start somewhere where it doesn't necessarily fit their skill set, but you can learn those other things and then move somewhere else afterwards. You should have a strategy with those pieces. It's a real challenge to find the things that I think are going to work for you. So that's how I look at it anyway, to have those things there. There is a lot to consider. And I think if you focus on the three different areas, you focus on your formal education, you focus on experience, and you focus on certifications. I think those are the three things that are at the top. Everything else is sort of a peppering and a flavor. Those are the three things you would want to be able to really focus on. As Rory said in the chat rooms, The Power of Wow. Maybe read that book, The Power of Wow. There's a lot of different powers of wow. Which one was it? It wasn't The Power of Wow. It was the Wow. What's the guy's name? The management. Somebody will know in the chat room. Management by walking around. It's that guy. The Pursuit of Wow. Tom Peters. There it is. That was the one. That was probably one of the first business books I read. That wasn't about business. It was about how to treat people, how to make yourself valuable, how to make your product valuable. It applies in a lot of different ways. It's called The Pursuit of Wow, by Tom Peters. Looks like this. There it is. It's a good book. I have that book in dead tree format around here somewhere. He has a lot of good books like that from those. I don't know if Tom goes to the mayor. Tom has a lot of books. A lot of books. He's been doing this a long time. I have not kept up with all of his books either. And I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. But the Pursuit of Wow, I think I agree with everything in that book. That was 100% book. Makes you look at things differently. When you're trying to present yourself to other people, when you're trying to create a product, I like to think that that's what I want to create with what we're doing here with Messer Studios. I want to create videos that are better than anybody else's videos that you could buy for any amount of money. And I want to make those videos, of course, they're available for free, which really messes people up. There are people that I've communicated with who said, well, don't watch those free videos. They're free. How good can they possibly be? And I want to change people's perspective of what they get for free, because I think there is a huge opportunity to make things better. Our single goal in Messer Studios is to get people jobs. The way we do that currently is with videos, but our mission statement is get people jobs. Maybe it's to get you your first job. Maybe it's to get you a better job, but that's it. Everything else is what we do to make that mission happen. If the videos aren't good enough, I'm going to make them better. If the course notes aren't good enough, I'm going to make them better. If I need a different kind of product, I'll make that product. It doesn't matter. I just need to figure out what is going to make that particular thing happen. And I want it to be wow. I want it to be people look at this and say, that's free? Wow. That's good. Then mission accomplished. That's the case. And by the way, you never get there. You're always striving for that. You're never 100% there. You're always trying to get it better and better and better all the time. And I think we're starting to see that. You're seeing in the industry, whenever I started, I think I came out with the first HD videos anybody ever seen in doing this. And now, of course, everybody's putting out their HD videos and they've got a set. And now it's something where they're trying to hone and tone and have a perfect voice for what they're trying to do. It's an interesting challenge. Are there any must-read books that I would recommend? That's a really good question. There are not a lot of books. I don't read a lot of books because I'm busy writing content these days. and I rarely sit down and read a book. I'm usually, if I'm reading a book, it's a book on how to get a certification, and nobody wants to read that. It's usually where I have a big list of books I would like to read. Where's my list? I'll bring up my list. You'll see what a painful thing. Let's go to my Amazon wish list, which is not public, and see what's in here. Shall we? How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, Kind of the Story of My Life by Scott Adams. I would like to read that. Have not read it. This is not the question you asked, by the way. You asked me what I should read. Now I'm telling you what I want to read. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by J.K. Rowling. Haven't read it. Without Their Permission, How the 21st Century Will Be Made, Not Managed. I haven't read it. Brewing Up a Business, Adventures in Beer from the founder of Dogfish Head's Craft Brewery. Have not read that, but I'd like to. The Element, How Finding Your Passion Changes Everything by Ken Robinson, PhD. I don't even know if it's any good, but I must have seen it somewhere. So I stuck it in my wish list. Haven't read it. This is compelling, isn't it? For you to hear the things that they haven't read yet. I think I got more. I have many wish lists on Amazon. I don't know if you folks do a lot of Amazon, but my wish lists are many and varied. I think that's about it. Book-wise, that's what's in my wish list. So that should give you an idea. If I was to read something, that's the type of thing I would read in there, because I just don't have time. I would love to read casually. I would love to read just a novel, science fiction novel. Grab just any type of science fiction novel and read it. I'd love to do that. I just don't have time. Eventually, someday, I'll retire and I can just do that. And of course I won't. I'll end up playing Destiny the entire time. And Mrs. Professor Messer will wonder why I ever retired to make that happen. There is a lot more I'd be able to go through here. Remember, I see a lot of you have sent me the continuing education units. Thanks for sending those in and having those available. I'm sorry that the call screening did not work properly this time. I'll find out exactly what was going on with that. And I'll make sure that if you do have something you would like to ask and you don't want to call in, but you would like to call in with the question, you can call the call-in line at any time throughout the month and just leave a voicemail. And I'll be glad. I can always take that voicemail offline. We can even play it on the air, and I'll answer the question on the air if that's something you'd like to do. The phone number is also on my live page at professormesser.com/live. It's there at the bottom. You can find that call-in number on any one of those. So you're more than welcome to do that and get those there too. Yeah, you understand there is no 15 to 20 minutes before bed. I am in my studio. Yesterday was more than a 12-hour day. I was in my studio. So I was here first thing in the morning. I've got a project going on. We're here till late at night. My studio is at my home, so I don't have to go anywhere, which is good and it's bad because I'm always here. So I just circle around. I'm in here until I get tired. Then I go in and collapse. And then we wake up the next day and do the same thing. That's the way it works. Maybe take an hour just before bed and play a game, something like that. You need that. That's my balance. I leave here to eat food and to play a video game, and then the rest of it is to make these things and prepare for this. So that's one of those things you do. No, we won't be doing the voicemail. We will do this live next time. The phone issue was on the phone side. It's on the phone service that I'm using. It's not a Skype issue. So unfortunately, that's just the way it works. If it was a Skype issue, it wouldn't have taken my messages I put in there. So it's something on the service I use. It's a cloud-based service that's used for this call-in. You're not calling me directly. So I'll have to find out what's on with that. And we'll do some testing and make sure that it works okay. We've done this in previous study groups. It works pretty darn well, I think. So that's what we're going to do. So, okay, last few questions coming in. I know the Apple event was today. I'm going to finish this up and go see what the remnants of that might be. and then watch the replay of that this afternoon. That's what I'm planning for the day. I have other projects going on, but I'm going to have that on in the background. Video game wise, I focus these days on Destiny, on Diablo 3, and a little bit of World of Warcraft here and there. And I've poked my head into Eve once, but I tend to get into something I can get into. I can kill something, I can pop out. A lot of time, I don't have a lot of time to spend on a long arc. I got stuff to do. So I need to get in there. I need to, like Destiny, I like to shoot people and then come out of there. It's just the video game thing. That's how it works. Enjoy that piece of it. Yeah, one of these days I will put my Xbox One name out there. That just scares me a little bit. I'm not sure I want to do that. So we'll have to figure that piece out. I'll come to you. We'll do it that way. That way it makes it a little more tolerable for me to be able to have those there. And yesterday it was like a 12 gig download for the Destiny update. So I'm looking forward to trying out the new expansion that's coming very shortly, which should be really, really good. That's where my passion is. I want something I can get into very quickly, but it's got a lot of depth. So if I wanted to spend time in there putting a lot of blocks together and look at the thing I have, I like in the new Destiny that I can get a gun and I can keep that gun and I can upgrade and I can change it, I can modify it. There's benefits there. So that's not exactly what the study group was about, but that's where my head is with those things. And of course, we've got a new version of the A+ certification that's due out by the end of the year. So obviously, I've got a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Eventually, that's going to ramp up. So we're going to have to get that going here very shortly before the end of the year. That's what my holiday will be like, I'm certain, with those pieces. Well, I've come to the end of another hour, another 2 hours of the study group and getting those together. I want to thank everybody for joining us, for putting together and being on the chat room, for participating in the questions. As I mentioned, I couldn't do the Q&A if there was no A part, and it's nice when everybody can participate and see how we do with those. I think we had some good questions this time. We're going to do these, of course, all the time. I've got other study groups that are happening next Wednesday. The same time is the Network Plus study group. There's a Security Plus study group a week after that. There is October the 14th is the next A+ study group. And of course, you can always see when the next study groups are going to be on the calendar. There's a link at the top of the Professor Messer page for the calendar, or you can just go to professormesser.com/calendar and find out about those as well. Of course, send me your emails. You can go to the top of the Professor Messer website. There's a contact us link. I'm on Twitter. You can DM me without subscribing or following me if you want to do that as well. And of course, I'm on Facebook and those. I keep checking those pieces as well, and on Reddit. So wherever you happen to be, hopefully I will be there as well. Again, thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time on the study group. Thanks, everyone.